So, uh, you want to really get a handle on all this AI stuff, right? Like machine learning, deep learning, all that.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's talking about it these days.
Exactly. And it can be kind of hard to keep up with what you know. But lucky for you, we've got this stack of articles from some pretty big names like IBM, and some popular learning resources like Geeks for Geeks.
Sounds like a solid foundation.
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive into all of it, and by the end, you'll be able to like walk into any conversation about AI and really know what you're talking about.
I like it. Let's demystify this AI world.
Right, so where do we even begin? I was looking at this article from Sumo Logic, and they use this analogy of Russian nesting dolls to explain how AI, machine learning, and deep learning all fit together.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one. It's a really helpful visual.
Right, so like you've got the biggest doll, and that represents AI, artificial intelligence.
And inside that you find machine learning.
And then nestled inside machine learning is the smallest doll, deep learning.
Makes it easy to see the hierarchy.
Yeah, so AI is the big umbrella. And I mean, it's really becoming a big deal. I saw this stat from IBM that 35% of businesses globally are already using AI, and another 42% are exploring it.
Those are some serious numbers. It's definitely not just a buzzword anymore.
Right. So when we talk about AI, we're really talking about machines that can like mimic human intelligence, things like problem-solving learning.
And what's really fascinating is their speed and efficiency in handling huge amounts of data. I mean, it's something we humans just can't match.
So it's not about replacing us. It's more about augmenting our abilities.
Yeah, exactly. AI can be this incredible tool to help us do things faster and better.
Now, I know there are different types of AI, right?
Yeah, there's this whole spectrum of intelligence levels. We have ANI, AGI, and ASI.
Okay, break those down for me.
So the one we encounter most often today is ANI, artificial narrow intelligence.
So like Siri on my phone.
Exactly. It's designed for specific tasks. Think of things like Alexa spam filters, even self-driving cars.
Yeah. So it's like AI, but for a narrow purpose. Makes sense. And what about AGI and ASI? Those sound a little more sci-fi.
They do. AGI, artificial general intelligence, is like the holy grail of AI. That's when a machine can perform at a human level across a wide range of tasks. Think truly intelligent machines that can learn and think like we do.
Okay, that's pretty wild. And ASI?
Artificial superintelligence. That's where machines surpass human intelligence. It's still largely in the realm of science fiction for now.
So we're safe from the Terminator scenario for now.
At least for now. But the progress in AI is happening so fast, it's hard to say what the future holds.
Okay, well, that's a little unsettling, but also exciting. So we've unpacked AI, the big picture. Now let's move on to that middle doll, machine learning. What exactly does it mean for a machine to learn?
So machine learning, or ML, is all about algorithms that can learn from data without being specifically programmed. So imagine you give a computer a huge data set, let's say pictures of animals. The machine can identify patterns in those pictures and use those patterns to predict what a new picture might be, like, say, classifying it as a cat or a dog.
So it's like teaching a dog new tricks, but instead of treats, you use data.
I like that analogy. But with ML, the computer actually builds its own understanding of the data, creates its own set of rules based on what it sees.
That's pretty cool. But I know there are different types of machine learning too, right? I was reading this article on Geeks for Geeks, and they talked about supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning.
Yeah, those are the main three. Think of it this way. In supervised learning, you're giving the computer labeled data, like showing it those animal pictures and saying, this is a cat, this is a dog. So the computer learns from those labels to classify new images.
So it's learning by example.
Exactly. Now, unsupervised learning is different. Here, you give the computer unlabeled data. So it's like giving it a pile of animal pictures with no labels, and the computer has to figure out how to group them based on similarities it finds on its own.
So it's more about uncovering hidden patterns and relationships.
Yes. It's like the computer making its own discoveries. Then there's reinforcement learning, where the computer learns through trial and error. Imagine a computer playing a game. It makes moves and gets rewards for good moves, penalties for bad ones. Over time, it learns the best strategy to maximize its rewards.
Like a digital Pavlov's dog, learning through rewards and consequences.
You got it. And this type of learning is used for some really sophisticated systems like robots and algorithms that manage complex things like traffic flow.
Wow, so we've got AI, this huge field of intelligent machines. Then within that, we have machine learning, where computers learn from data in different ways. Now let's open up that smallest doll, deep learning. What makes it so deep?
Deep learning is all about using neural networks with multiple layers to mimic the way the human brain processes information. Imagine the brain with billions of interconnected neurons. Deep learning tries to recreate that structure with artificial neural networks.
So it's learning, but in a way that's inspired by the most complex organ we know.
Exactly. And the deep part refers to the number of layers in these neural networks. The more layers, the deeper the network, and the more complex the patterns it can learn.
So it's those deeper layers that give deep learning its power.
Yes. Think of it this way. Traditional machine learning is like trying to understand a complex machine by just looking at the individual parts. Deep learning is like seeing how all those parts work together, how they interact to make the whole machine function.
That's a great way to put it. But before we go any further, we can't forget about this hot new topic. Everyone's talking about generative AI. Where does that fit into our nesting doll analogy?
Ooh, generative AI is really fascinating because it takes that learning aspect of deep learning and pushes it into the realm of creation. It's like giving the machine a paintbrush and letting it paint, or giving it a pen and letting it write stories.
So instead of just recognizing patterns, it's actually creating something new based on what it's learned.
Exactly. And the results can be pretty mind-blowing. We're talking about AI generating realistic pictures, composing music writing code, even coming up with new scientific hypotheses.
No way. That's incredible. But how does it actually work? What's going on under the hood to make this creation possible?
Well, at the heart of it are those deep neural networks we were talking about. But instead of classifying data, these networks are trained to generate new data that's similar to what they were trained on.
So if you train a network on cat pictures, it can then generate new pictures of cats that look real, even though they're not real cats.
Exactly. And this works with all sorts of data, text, music code, even 3D models.
Okay, so we're getting pretty deep here, and this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more to unpack, including all the practical applications of this stuff, and I definitely want to delve deeper into that whole generative AI thing. But I think it's time to take a quick break. Let everyone process all this, and we'll pick up the conversation in part 2.
Sounds good. I'm ready for more when you are. Welcome back. You ready to dive back in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much cool stuff to talk about. I'm still thinking about that stat from IBM. 35% of businesses are already using AI, and another 42% are exploring it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see how quickly it's becoming mainstream.
Right. Like, it's not just some futuristic concept anymore. It's happening right now. So I'm curious, what are some of the ways businesses are actually using this stuff? Like machine learning, for example.
Well, one really common application is personalized marketing. You know how streaming services like Netflix recommend shows based on your viewing history?
Yeah, how do they know what I want to watch? It's kind of creepy sometimes.
That's machine learning at work. It's analyzing your viewing habits and predicting what you might enjoy.
So it's not just random guesses. There's like a whole algorithm behind it.
Exactly. And it's not just Netflix. It's used in e-commerce, music, streaming, advertising, all sorts of industries.
It's like having a personal shopper who knows your taste better than you do. That's pretty cool. But what about more complex applications? You mentioned fraud detection earlier. How does machine learning help with that?
So imagine a bank monitoring millions of transactions every day. It would be impossible for humans to catch every instance of fraud.
Yeah, there's just too much data.
Right. But a machine learning algorithm can analyze all those transactions and look for patterns that might indicate fraud, like unusual spending patterns or transactions from weird locations.
So it's like having a digital detective on the case.
Exactly. And it's not just banks. This kind of technology is used in cybersecurity, identifying threats in large crowds, all sorts of security applications.
It's crazy how much this stuff is already impacting our lives.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about machine learning. What about deep learning? How are businesses using that?
Deep learning is really good at tasks that require a deep understanding of complex data, like image recognition and natural language processing.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about self-driving cars. They use deep learning to process information from cameras and sensors so they can navigate roads, identify obstacles, make decisions in real time.
Wow, so they're not just recognizing a stop sign, they're understanding the whole driving environment.
Exactly. And this same level of processing is used in other fields too, like medical diagnosis or financial forecasting.
So deep learning is kind of pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember that AI in general is a tool. It's up to us humans to decide how to use it.
You said earlier that AI is augmenting human abilities, not replacing them. I like that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not man versus machine. It's man with machine.
Exactly. We
Wow.
can work together to achieve amazing things. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Let's shift gears a bit and talk more about generative AI. Remember those LLMs we touched on earlier?
Yeah, those large language models that can generate human-like text, that stuff is mind-blowing.
Right. It's like having a digital Shakespeare or a virtual Beethoven at your fingertips.
But how does it actually work? Like if I tell an LLM to write a sonnet about a robot falling in love, what happens?
So basically, the LLM has been trained on massive amounts of text data. It's learned the patterns of language, the probability of different words and phrases appearing together.
So it's like a supercharged autocomplete. But instead of suggesting the next word, it's generating whole poems.
Exactly. And the more data it's trained on, the better it gets at generating creative and coherent text.
That's incredible. But it also raises some interesting questions, like if an AI can write a novel that's just as good as a human-written novel, what does that mean for the future of writing?
It's a great question, and it gets to the heart of the debate about creativity and AI. Some people think AI is just a tool and real creativity comes from humans. Others think AI can be creative in its own right.
It's a fascinating debate and one that we could probably talk about for hours. But let's get back to the basics for a minute. We've been talking about machine learning and deep learning, but I think it's worth clarifying the key differences between the two.
You're right, they are distinct. One big difference is in the way they learn. Machine learning needs structured data, like data that's organized in rows and columns. Deep learning can work with unstructured data, like images, text, audio, thanks to those neural networks.
So deep learning is better at dealing with the messy, real-world data we encounter all the time.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Machine learning is like teaching a kid shapes with flashcards, neatly drawn circles, squares, triangles. Deep learning is like taking that kid out into the world and letting them see all the different shapes and sizes and colors in nature.
I like that analogy. So basically, machine learning is about finding patterns and making predictions, while deep learning is about understanding those patterns and using that understanding to create something new.
That's a great way to put it. And both are incredibly powerful technologies that are transforming our world.
This conversation has been so enlightening, but we're not done yet. There's still so much more to explore, like the ethical implications of all this stuff.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're using these technologies responsibly and thoughtfully.
Agreed. So stay tuned, everyone. We're going to delve into the ethical landscape of AI in the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive, everyone. It's time to tackle the big question, the ethical side of AI.
Yeah, we've seen how powerful these technologies can be, but with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Exactly. We've talked about all the amazing things AI can do, but we need to make sure we're using it for good.
One of the biggest concerns is the impact on jobs. I mean, if AI can automate tasks that humans used to do, what happens to those people?
Yeah, that's a real worry. Think about all the jobs in manufacturing, transportation, customer service. AI is already changing those industries.
It's a tough challenge, but we need to focus on things like education and retraining programs to help people adapt.
So it's not just about protecting existing jobs, it's about creating new opportunities in fields related to AI.
Right. AI is also creating new jobs in areas like AI development, data science, AI ethics.
And it's important to remember that AI is a tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're developing and using it in a way that benefits everyone.
That brings up another big issue bias in AI systems. If these systems are trained on biased data, they can perpetuate and even amplify those biases.
You're right, like facial recognition systems that are less accurate at identifying people of color. That can have serious consequences.
So we need to be really careful about the data we use to train these systems.
Absolutely. We need diverse and representative data sets to avoid reinforcing harmful stereotypes.
So it's not enough to just focus on the technical side of AI. We need to consider the social and ethical implications too.
Definitely. Developing responsible AI requires a multidisciplinary approach. We need experts from all sorts of fields, computer science, ethics, social sciences, law, to make sure AI aligns with our values.
It sounds like a huge task.
It is, but it's crucial. The stakes are high. We're talking about technologies that could completely reshape our world.
And that's why we're having this conversation, to make sure that reshaping is a positive one.
Exactly. The more we understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the challenges and opportunities it presents.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind. We've gone from the basics of AI, machine learning, deep learning, all the way to the ethical dilemmas of generative AI.
It's a lot to take in, but hopefully you're feeling more informed and empowered to engage in these important conversations.
Remember, the future of AI is not set in stone. It's up to all of us to shape it. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.
And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you found this journey into the world of AI as fascinating as we did.